How are you, Harry? Good morning.
Harry, how are you, mate?
Where are we?
All right, Jarrod, Bleijie, member for Kawana, Shadow Finance Minister, joined by Brent, Mickelberg, Shadow Minister for Small Business and member for Buderim. Well, we're down here in Caloundra today, and Cameron Dick is the Treasurer, is on the Sunshine Coast. And I got to say, this budget delivered last week by Cameron Dick and Anastasia Palaszczuk was a budget of lost and missed opportunities on the Sunshine Coast, but all over Queensland. This week I've travelled around Queensland as Shadow Finance Minister, following Cameron Dick, going into the towns that he's going into, and highlighting the fact that this budget is all talk and no action, and very little action, in fact. The Treasurer is on the coast this morning talking about investment in infrastructure. What he won't say is that the budget handed down at the end of last year with the state Labor government had $56 billion of infrastructure being spent over the next 4 years. This budget handed down last week has $52 billion. There has been a $4 billion cut to infrastructure across the state. Now, the Treasurer and Minister Mark Bailey this morning talk about an investment into the Maloula River interchange, something the LNP have been campaigning for years and in fact promising money for years. The Labor government have been in power for 6 years in the state of Queensland, and they have not spent a dollar on the Maloula River interchange, despite the fact they keep saying a business case was being spent, $7 million for a business case. The reality is this state Labor budget has $4 million for the Maloula River interchange. The federal government have invested $160 million. So again, it's the federal government coming to save the state government out of their capital and infrastructure problems that they've got, because we know the state Labor government do not spend on infrastructure, particularly on the Sunshine Coast. So they will have the glossy brochures and the glitz and glamour today about an announcement, Maloula River interchange. The reality is the budget delivered last week delivers $4 million out of $320 million. Maloula River interchange is a state road, and the state government should have built it years ago. And now they come to the Sunshine Coast saying they're bringing gifts to the coast. The reality is the federal government chipped in the $160 million, which thankfully forced the state government to get on with the job. The second point I'd make, across the state, we're seeing hospital and health crisis. Sunshine Coast University Hospital has one of the highest ambulance ramping numbers across any jurisdiction in the state of Queensland. 40 to 50% of patients are ramped at the Sunshine Coast University Hospital, and a third can't get to see their doctor on time that they should. That's the reality of the state budget. And I'll conclude on this before I pass to Brent Mickelberg, the Shadow Minister for Small Business, to talk about what we discussed yesterday as we travel the state with our small business Blitz. The government have announced this morning that they're going to review Kawana Way from Periara right down to Merredin Plains. They're going to put a review in place about the road. This was done 10 years ago. It was called the Multimodal Transport Corridor, the MMTC. And this is where, at the back of the hospital, where the railway Camcos corridor is. It was always designed to have an upgraded motorway, which was the Kawana Way and the Kawana Way Link Road. They've announced today another survey. What this means is this project is going to be delayed and kicked into the never ending. It's not going to happen. The review was done 10 years ago. Mark Bailey will have these maps. He will have the plans for this road upgrade sitting on his desk. So instead of announcing a review today, he should ask his department to pull out the maps, get on with the job of building the Camcos corridor, bring heavy passenger rail to the Sunshine Coast, and hopefully then that will force the council to abandon their fantasy light rail plans, wrecking our beachside communities and our environment. Over to Brent to say a few words.
Thanks, Jarrod. Brent Mickelberg, member for Buderim. I've just sat through a budget lunch with the Treasurer Cameron Dick, and we have heard nothing new for the people of the Sunshine Coast. No new announcements, no commitment to heavy rail through to Maroochydore or even to Caloundra. We've heard recycled announcements on the Maloula River interchange, recycled announcements on building new schools here on the Sunshine Coast, which have been needed for years, and the government have been dragged kicking and screaming to spend the money on schools that should have been built years ago. In my own electorate of Buderim, I've been campaigning for upgrades for the government to build the Palmview State High School. We've got a primary school which opened earlier this year, and we've got Year 6 students there who are going to have to go to another high school in Year 7 just because the government can't get their act together and build the Palmview State High School so it opens in 2022, not in 2023. It is a joke, and it doesn't pass muster. We've also seen funding today trumpeted pretty loudly by the government in relation to the Maloula River interchange, as Jarrod just said. $4 million next year, $4 million, no commitment for funding over the forwards of any substance. Transport main roads work on a 2-year time frame. So that $160 million that the government have been trumpeting today, most of that is not committed and we won't see. Last week in Parliament, when I raised this with the Minister for Transport and Main Roads, and I said the federal government have stumped up $160 million for a state road, he said it's a good deal. And he's right, it is a very good deal. And he should be getting on with the job of building the Maloula River interchange, not mucking around playing silly games and dragging it out and taking the Sunshine Coast community for granted, which is exactly what this state government have done for years and continue to do. It's not good enough. The people of the Sunshine Coast and the people of Queensland deserve better than what they're getting from this current state Labor government. On small business, I've been travelling the state along with my shadow ministerial colleagues. Yesterday I was in Townsville, I've been on the Gold Coast, Cairns, right across the state. And the message from small business is very clear. This is a budget that does nothing for small business. There's no commitment to provide support for businesses that are affected by COVID, be they businesses that have suffered as a consequence of lockdown, or even worse, those businesses that have been identified as contact tracing sites. The government could have listened to our calls for a COVID business support package and instituted measures like lump sum payments for small businesses that are affected by a lockdown, cleaning cost rebates for businesses that are identified as COVID contact tracing sites. These are things that exist in other states. Victoria have these measures, Western Australia have these measures. So we're not talking about something revolutionary here. We're just asking the government to listen to the calls for small business and provide them the support they need. We could see a proposal where events are underwritten in the event that they're cancelled as a consequence of public health decisions. That would build confidence right across the sector. The Sunshine Coast tourism economy is built on events, as is Townsville, as is Cairns, as is the Gold Coast. These are areas that are suffering as a consequence of a lack of confidence, and it's the state government's job to fix that. So we'd like to see the state government to stop the spin, start listening, listen to small business, listen to the Sunshine Coast community, and get on with the job of delivering for all Queenslanders, not just selling a message across the state.
Jarrod, can I just run a couple of things
Sure.
past you? You mentioned there that the Maloula River interchange has been on the table for quite a long time. It's been in previous election policies. Is it at least heartening to see that it is on the table and that it is potentially going to get more interest now? I mean, it's started, so it's.
Yep.
What's your feelings?
Oh, look, absolutely. And as I said, if the federal government hadn't chipped in $160 million, this would never have happened because we know that the state government have been doing a business case. They spent $7 million on a business case, and it seems now that this is all back to front because they've not released the business case. So they delayed it because of the business case, and we've asked questions in Parliament, where's the business case? And they said, oh, well, it'll be released once it's all done. And now we've got an announcement today that it's happening, or they're putting $4 million into the budget, and yet the $7 million the Sunshine Coast community have spent on a business case, we've never seen. So the community didn't know where the route was, how many cars it's going to take off congestion. I've looked at the flyover that they've released today. Concerningly, if that's the case, then it looks like it's a one lane across Maloula River. So if we're talking about building roads for the future, and we're already now building new motorways over the Maloula River with one lane each side, we're going to be having the same conversation in 10 years' time. Oh, if only we had a thought to double the capacity when we built this thing now, which may be the reason why this is a $320 million project, not $440 million as was proposed 6 years ago. So look, I'm heartened that the federal government have chipped in half the money for this. I'm disheartened by the fact that it's taken the federal government to have to chip in the money for the state government to realise that we better get on with it. And I think the good thing is the state government were embarrassed into at least putting it in the budget, because for 6 years they've delivered 6 budgets and they've not had a dollar for the Maloula River interchange. At least there's $4 million. That won't do much, I've got to say, for the Maloula River interchange, but we'll keep campaigning for it. We're not going to rest until we see shovels in the ground and this project happening.
You've got a lot of people moving from various parts to the Sunshine Coast. There's probably accelerated growth. I think for a lot of people, the growth here has been faster than expected, and I think now with COVID, that's accelerating even more. What sort of emphasis do you think that's going to mean in terms of increasing infrastructure and those things that revolve around when you get more and more people into an area?
Well, as you get more people into an area, infrastructure's got to grow with the population. The problem is, for the last 6 years, the infrastructure we have at the moment doesn't cater for the current population. So there's a high level of frustration, and I understand why in the Sunshine Coast community, that we should have had the Mooloolah River interchange started 6 years ago. It would have been finished now, and people would have been driving a new entrance into Mooloolaba. They would have been driving over a new Mooloolah River. The state government bought the land in the Buderim electorate. They've got the corridor there. So the reality is, if the state government had been properly planning the Mooloolah River interchange, we wouldn't be having this discussion today, because people would be currently sitting on it, driving on it. So look, but as the Sunshine Coast grows, people want to come to the Sunshine Coast. It's a great place to live. Who wouldn't want to live? Who wouldn't want to come to the Sunshine Coast? But the reality is, the transport infrastructure we have now doesn't cope with the population. So that's why we're going to put more pressure on to bring forward the Mooloolah River interchange. Now the feds have put money on the table. We want to see, obviously with the campaign for the Olympics in 2032, we want to see more infrastructure, use that as an opportunity to finally get rail, heavy passenger rail from Biwa to Caloundra to Kuana to Maroochydore. $1.6 billion council want to spend on a tram down Nicklin Way. I know my community would rather $1.6 billion spent on a heavy passenger rail on the Camcos corridor. And you know what? This is actually, think of the tradies on the Sunshine Coast at the moment. Our tradies who, at the moment, are driving out to the highway, parking on the side of the highway, getting carpools to Brisbane for work, or the Gold Coast where the construction jobs are happening. They're going to Caboolture. They're going on the train at Caboolture. How good would it be if we had an opportunity for our tradies to actually get a train at Batinya, at Caloundra, at Maroochydore, to go to work and be home in time for dinner?
I suppose, to be fair, to say the council is going to spend $1.6 billion, it's not really going to be the council, is it, that's spending that money? That's got to be state government money and potentially federal government money. Do you think that with more and more people, that we really need to I just lost my train of thought there.
That's right. I'll take the point, Charles, with the
measures that you mentioned yesterday. Have you had any feedback or comment from the state government in terms of some of those suggestions to help people with some of the COVID initiatives?
Well, Brent may want to comment on this, but I just make the point that, when we had those 2 cases from Melbourne test positive, the 2 people from Melbourne test positive on the Sunshine Coast, we had coffee shops at Kings Beach closed down, we had Whiteside GA down in Baringa shut down, we had in Kuana Shopping Centre, Stockland Shopping Centre in Caloundra shut down. So to give you an example, those cafes under our plan for the perishable, for instance, perishables, if they had a plan to stay open for the weekend, they bought produce for the weekend, and then the state government put us into lockdown, then they would have a claim for a grant from the state government to cover the cost of those perishables. That's the thing that we've been saying, is all businesses want and need at the moment is certainty in such an uncertain time. So that's the package we released yesterday. Unfortunately, I think Queensland is the only state in Australia, state or territory in Australia, that doesn't have a small business package like what we've announced, and yet we've had lockdowns, we've had shutdowns, and as concerning it is in what's happening in New South Wales, there's a few cases announced today in Queensland. If we do get to the situation where the state do lock us down, our businesses need the support, because the JobKeeper's not there for the businesses anymore. There is if they're shut down for a long period, seven days. So they certainly need the support. And local businesses tell us this is the type of policy they need to get them through and cover some of their expenses. Do you have anything to add?
Comment on
that? Charles, we actually asked this question of the government in question time, and the response was, we've provided grants to small business generally. What that ignores, though, is that they have not provided any grants specifically to those businesses that are affected by COVID. There have been grants to allow businesses to adapt as a consequence of COVID, but that's different to what we're talking about, which is supporting business in their time of need. I've met with many businesses who have actually been COVID contact tracing sites. An example of that is the Gin Bakery on the highway going north. The lady who runs the Gin Bakery, her name's Marie, she told me that the effect of being identified as a COVID contact tracing site cost her more than $15,000. But not just that, it had a massive impact on her personally and that of her staff. These are real issues for real businesses in Queensland. And to be frank, it's not good enough for the state government to ignore these genuine concerns. I don't think the budget is underwritten on an assumption that says there'll be no major COVID outbreaks in Queensland. That's the assumption that underpins all of the expenditure that the Treasurer is spruiking inside there right now. If that's the case, if he's confident in those assumptions, he should have no hesitation in putting forward a sum of money to be set aside in the event that that's incorrect. That provides confidence to small business so that they can get on with the job of running their business, employing Queenslanders and making Queensland a more productive economy.
Thanks.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you.